How it was all connected. I'm still in my office at this very late hour, signing some papers for the next day's board meeting. As my secretary reads my crazy schedule for next week, I told her to clear my schedule on Monday from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, since it will be my sister's college graduation. I will be the one to attend since mom and dad can't come, since they're still overseas for dad's ongoing treatment. I mean, he was already fine a year after he was diagnosed, but they are still traveling every 6 months for follow up checkups. My family just wants to make sure he's totally fine and ready to get back on track as a chairman. By that, he appointed me as the chairman of MLAO Group and assigned his former secretary to me for the meantime. I still remember how funny and embarrassing it was when I first visited Dad's office. I thought his secretary was his other woman, since she's always around and assists him. Now, I can't help but feel terribly ashamed now that she's my secretary as I look back on that moment. After she mentioned and finalized my schedule, I told her to just go home first and let my driver drop her off. As she closed the door, my phone just rang and saw it was a call from the house. As expected, it was a call from my son. Every time I hear my little boy's voice, it boosts my energy and gets me motivated at work. He was assisted by our nanny to make the call, and he asked me if I could be home by the time he went to bed because he wanted me to read him his bedtime stories tonight. Since I promised him the other night, I will definitely be home before his bedtime. He was happy and excited after I told him I would, and we hung up the phone. He's been my strength since the day I find out I had him. After everything that happened, it was all worth it. Fighting for my son is all worth it. I just sighed, watching his face on my phone wallpaper, and realized he looks exactly like his father, whom I met years ago. I continued signing some of the documents and headed home. While I'm having my late dinner at the house, my son is sitting at the dining table with me and excitingly showed me his favorite book that I will be reading tonight. After I had my dinner, I washed up and headed to his bedroom for some story time. My son's hugs and kisses will always be my favorite reward after a long and busy day. I do look forward to his warm hugs to ease and end the day. As I finished reading his favorite book, I was taken aback by his sudden question and asked when would be the ideal moment for his father to also tell him stories like the ones we are doing right now. I just smiled and told him he'll just have to wait and be patient, for it will be a long ride ahead of us. Then I kissed his forehead goodnight and went to sleep. As I went to my sister's graduation, I couldn't help but smile and feel so much light as I reminisced about my college days at this university. I also took my bachelor's degree exactly where my sister studies, and now it's her time to shine. As I'm heading to the university stadium, I can see some familiar faces. The parents of her friends and classmates, along with relatives. I'm also a proud parent to my sister as well. I got goosebumps when I heard the classic graduation song as the graduates started to march on the stage to receive their certificates. The moment my sister was called along with that award as one of the cum laudes in her batch, I instantly jumped and cheered her up where I was seated. More like a proud mom here. She saw me hyping her up as she waved her diploma right on the stage. She clearly takes pride in having accomplished her goal, and I know our parents do too, even when they can't make it to her special day. My forever baby just finished her college degree, and I know she will brag about that company thing again. She was astonished to see me where the parents and guardians were seated when she eagerly rushed to see me after the ceremony. Of course, I cleared all my schedules just for her. I can't miss my baby sister's graduation day. Never. Seeing her with that black gown makes me emotional, and it's the best outfit of the day everyone could ask for. She just smiled at me and put her graduation cap on me. On my graduation day, I was awarded as one of the cum laude in our batch. She apologized for not being able to receive that award like me, and I jokingly messed up her hair, saying it didn't matter as long as she was happy and completed the degree. And as expected, she did brag about working at MLAU Group. I simply gave her that look and told her we had already discussed it. I also told her that even though I graduated magna cum laude with a marketing degree, our dad did not allow me to work directly for our company. Instead, he let me work at the other company as my training ground and to upskill. Then she brought up the scenario about my son, and she realized the mood had changed. She also said that she has no regrets about being my son's aunt and that she is grateful to have the most handsome nephew anyone could ask for. And yes, I admit my son is a blessing in disguise and is a ball of sunshine in our family. As the mood became even more serious, I instead pinched her nose and handed her a paper bag. She told me not to bother getting her a graduation gift because she had enough money to buy it herself. But she stopped talking the moment she opened it. It was the latest iPhone release. And then she hugged me tightly. I laughed when she said that if this gift is a way to convince her to stop bugging me about working at MLAO, then it is effective for her. Now, she's okay with applying to other companies, and it's settled. We took some photos with her classmates and friends for remembrance and social media purposes. As I checked my phone, I realized I need to go back to the office since I still need to do my stuff and have a meeting in half an hour. My sister was kind of disappointed when I told her since she expected us to celebrate. But then I told her we were going out to dinner tonight and that I'll tell my brother to fetch her and my son at the house. That night, I was a little late for our dinner with my sister and my son, but it didn't bother them since they always understood my situation. The important thing is that I came, and seeing these two makes me happy and alive. As my son's nanny assisted him to the washroom, my sister jokingly told me that the group of guys at the other table was way too good looking for me to ignore. I just turned their way and then went back to eating and said they're not my type. And besides, the company and my son are my top priorities as of now. She just scoffed and told me I'm boring. Huh? Looks who's talking here. I then told her to just focus on her food, and then Nanny and my boy just came back from the washroom. While we were finishing our meal, I informed her that I would be busier in the coming weeks or months. There will be numerous business trips and events that I must attend, and as a matter of fact, I will see her frequently. And I will look up her landing on a prestigious company that suits her capabilities to learn more for her to get into MLAO Group. As the chairman, for the time being, I now understand that situation more. Sometimes it took him weeks or worse months before I got to see him in our house, since he travels a lot for business conferences, events, gatherings, business balls, and way more meetings than I ever imagined. It's like this office serves as his own house, since clearly he stays here more than he spent sitting on our couch. I did disappoint him once, and this is the perfect time for me to be able to prove to myself that I'm worth the position here at MLAO Group. Right now, I'm preparing for a later meeting with the CEO of different organizations we have in the company. While looking at the files, my secretary just knocked and told her to come in. She reminded me that we will be having a meeting in 15 minutes. I just sighed and slightly massaged my temples. She asked me if I'm okay and suggested that I should cancel my meeting if I'm not in my best condition. I tiredly smiled and told her I'm not like my father, who abruptly cancels everything when he's angry or something. While preparing my stuff for the meeting, she told me not to be hard on myself, since she noticed I was way too stressed and haggard these past few days. I mean, how could I not? Being a mom and a chairman at the same time is nerve-wracking. I almost forgot how to relax and have time for myself. I wish Dad was here and just tell me what his secret is in handling this kind of stuff. Before leaving my room, she reminded me about the next week's business trip, and that made me stressed even more. But she told me not to worry since half of the business trips she went with Dad, were light and focused on socializing with other people, which was a lot of fun. And she mentioned that the venue would be near the beach and that everyone is required to attend a little beach party afterward. Hmm, thinking of attending that part makes me choose to just sleep after the meeting. A week after that, we fly outside the country for a business trip. As usual, I'm with my secretary. The first part of our trip is done, and now I'm tired as hell. Now we are here back in our hotel room, and I was surprised when my secretary just handed me some beach outfits and accessories. I thought all along she was just joking and making fun of me. I should be sleeping instead. But she persisted, telling me that if I go to this beach party, I'll be hitting two birds with one stone. This means I'll be meeting some of our people and competitors from the same industry while also enjoying the ambience. So I have no choice but to change my look and go. As we arrived at the venue, as expected, there were a lot of business people socializing and drinking. But I know there was a lot more business talking. Some of the faces are familiar to me, while others are unfamiliar. But one thing is certain. Some of these people are competitors from other companies. My secretary was with me at the time, and she decided to take a glass of wine from the waiter and handed it to me. We are just observing people, and she gave me an introduction to those businessmen she knows. Some are top companies, like ours, but others have been declining and losing rates for months. I was just sitting there, attentively listening to her, when someone approached us. I see a middle-aged, good-looking man, and I'm guessing he's one of the chairmen. As he was about to talk, my secretary just excused herself since she needed to go to the washroom. He asked me if she was in a hurry and added that it's been a long day and she certainly needs it badly. How attentive of him to recognize my secretary, and I asked him about it. Well, he just said most of us are with our assistants, and I wonder where his assistant could be. He just told me he was with his son. The CEO was nowhere to be found and was busy roaming around the place. He almost forgot to introduce himself, and by doing so, he informed me that he is the chairman of the Be Real group. He recognized me as a daughter of the previous chairman as I began introducing myself and mentioned I am the chairman of the MLAO group. It looks like everyone knew about it, and most especially they knew about my father's condition. Being known as the daughter of the chairman of the MLAO group is both an advantage and a disadvantage, based on the conversation we had. But the thing is that most people do not know the chairman has two daughters, since my sister is still studying at that time. And as much as possible, we're not including personal or any family backgrounds to show it all on social media. Besides, Dad wants my sister to just focus more on her studies rather than take part in the company's issues. He also asked me how my dad is doing, and I told him that he is doing well. He is still in the process of medication and more on his rest days. Out of my curiosity to know more about him, I also asked how long he's been in the industry since I'm not that familiar with him. He just said they just recently expanded their partnership this year and that he looked forward to meeting my dad very soon. Well, I'm not sure if Dad wants to partner with you, but we'll see. After that conversation, he left the table, and there was no sign of my secretary. So I just texted her that it was fine if she doesn't come back, and I'll take a tour of the nearby areas. I decided to pick up my beach sandals for me to be able to feel the pure sand on my feet. The sound of the waves and wind calms my soul. I miss this feeling. I wish I could do this more often. I wish I could. I can see several people having fun in the nearby beach bars. I miss having fun. I miss seeing my friends. Ever since I was appointed as the chairman, while Dad needs to take a rest due to his condition, I haven't had my life back. I miss my son most of the time. I miss being around him and how it feels like to be a mother who gets everything ready for him from the moment he wakes up until he goes to bed at night. As I mentioned to my sister, I didn't land my first job at MLAO Group right after I finished college, since my dad wants me to have an experience outside the company. Well, since I was immediately employed as the marketing manager at this particular company due to being a magna cum laude, it wasn't that difficult to look for businesses or positions. The company or job itself will look at for you, not the other way around. So trust me, it has a real advantage. It took me a year for dad to finally let me into our family business. And then my life suddenly changed after I met this guy. Years ago, before I got into MLAO, I asked dad if I could have a little vacation as a reward for myself being the new chief marketing officer. At first, he didn't want me to, since I'll be alone, but I insisted, since I know I won't be having that much time with myself by the time I get back here. My sister also insisted on coming, but I told her to just focus on her enrollment and stuff, so she didn't bother asking me again at all. Dad told me to be safe, and I know he wants to add some advice not to get pregnant yet. I simply gave them a comforting glance and told them not to worry about it. Or so I thought. During the last night of my little vacation for myself, I decided to go bar hopping. I was about to order some drinks when a guy suddenly approached me. I admit, the moment I saw him, I kind of think he was cute. He told me he noticed I was alone and he did mention his villa, where he stayed, is right next to mine. He introduced himself and said he was also on vacation alone. He ordered non-alcoholic drinks, but I insisted on having a hard drink for my last night here at the resort. After a few shots, everyone's spinning. Little did I know, I'm already drunk and he himself is okay and fine as hell from the start. As a gentleman, he suggested bringing me back to my villa for me to rest. I didn't realize I'm already at the villa, not until he wanted to go back to his place as well. I'm not myself, and the moment I stopped him, I know something's gonna happen between us. The next morning, I woke up with no clothes on but the sheets on top of me. And then I suddenly remembered what happened. That day, my flight's at 12 noon, and it's already 11:24 a.m. As far as I can remember, I swiftly took a shower and packed my things. I didn't have the time to go to his villa since it was way too late. Since I got back from that vacation, I noticed how I'm always feeling tired. I just shrug and think about how challenging it is for me to work at MLAO. But it seems different. I'm bothered since it affects my mood at work, so I decided to go to the hospital. And so I found out I was 2 weeks pregnant. Dad eventually found out I was having a baby. He told me I was a disgrace to the family and to the whole company since I'm the eldest daughter of the MLAO group's chairman. And what's worse, I can't even tell him who's the father of my little fella. It took me weeks to finally go back to my work and let it all sink in. Some people at the office did know about my condition, but I did not care. I usually do virtual meetings and stuff during my 7th month of pregnancy. Dad also advised me to lessen my workload, since he doesn't want me to be so stressed. After all, he really cares about me and my baby. And yes, I did have a baby boy. And regarding his dad, I don't know. At that time, part of me didn't want him to know about my pregnancy. But I named my boy after his name. At first, Dad doesn't approve of that name, but eventually, he has no choice. Years later, we found out about Daddy's condition. He has a mild stroke, which means he badly needs to take his medications seriously and more on taking some rest. Dad's been okay within that year, thank God, but he decided to not go back to being the chairman in the meantime. I remember him saying I can do it, and so far the company is in good shape while I'm at it. He also told me I'll eventually know when he's ready to go back, since I'm one email away. I just smiled. I'm glad I was able to manage our company despite what happened. After all, I really thanked my dad for everything he has done for me, and for my son. My phone abruptly rang while I was relaxing by the beach, and the call came from the house. My son simply wants me to buy him another storybook, and I miss him. Then I heard a familiar voice from that specific person, and he was addressed by his given name. I turned around, but I didn't get a chance to see who was talking nearby. No way it was him. No way! Then the call with my son ended, so I decided to go back to the hotel room as my secretary was waiting for me. As mom and dad are going back to the house after their overseas checkup, I realized I wasn't able to catch up with my little sister for a long time. That's how busy I am. I told her to stay in the house since our parents are coming and that I need to ask about her whereabouts at her new job. After dinner with the family, I went to my sister's room and simply asked how she was doing because it had been a long time since we had that sister by sister talk. While I was scanning her room, I found this folder at her table. As I opened it, my heart just dropped and I froze. I saw the picture of this so familiar face I couldn't forget. She told me he is the CEO/son of her boss. None other than the chairman of the Be Real group, and that she worked for them. I realized I just met the chairman during our most recent business trip, and that he mentioned he was with his son along with him. So I was right then. That voice I heard while I'm at the beach was him. I told her how naive she was to think she could work for one of our competitors. She then told me she didn't know about it and just applied to the same industry as ours, as her training ground. She even told me she didn't apply for a secretarial position, but that it just happened to be the only position they have in the meantime. So she grabbed it since she's desperate to have experience and to work at MLAO as soon as she can. I didn't realize my tears were falling. I asked her one last time what the CEO's name, and then she realized something. My son looks like the CEO. I started crying myself out, and my sister as well. Little did we both know, Daddy is in front of the door, and I guess he heard everything based on his reaction. He just found out that his grandson was also the competitor's grandson. He was so disappointed. He wanted to disown me and told me to leave the house with my son. He also told me to stay out of the company and that he appointed my sister as the new CEO, for he will be back as the chairman once again. But my sister disagreed and convinced our dad that she will only accept the position as long as I and my son stay. The next day, Dad came back to the office, for he will be back as the chairman, then called an emergency meeting with all the boards. Dad secretly had an appointment with Be Real's group's chairman and his son, the CEO, along with me. I had a huge lump in my throat as I watched him enter the meeting room and realized it was me. For how many years of not being able to see him, it's finally here. We are here. Later on, the two companies started to work jointly for their grandson. We also settled everything with my son's father and realized we've been missing each other all this time. We tied the knot months after that revelation, and both families were happy with how it ended. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing.